Hello, welcome back to the David Watson podcast. Today I spoke with Alretha Thomas, and an actress, an author of 15 books, and great conversation. I hope you enjoy it. Hello, welcome to the David Watson podcast, and thank you for putting up with my timekeeping, because just reference to people, I didn't realise we were about to start and I'm an hour behind. So thank you very much for your patience. I do appreciate it.
Yes.
So we're here today. We're going to have a chat about your book, but I just wanted to go over a couple of things if I can. Where did the acting start, the writing start, and kind of what came first?
That's a great question. I went to the University of Southern California in Los Angeles, and I went to school to be a journalist. That's what I wanted to be. I saw people on television, Barbara Walters, Oprah Winfrey, and I was enamored with them, and I wanted to become a reporter. So I studied journalism in school. In high school, I had friends that were actors, but I just saw it as not practical, not a practical profession. And I couldn't envision myself waiting on tables and all that, trying to become successful as an actress. So I thought going into TV news was more practical, which it wasn't, because it's still the entertainment industry per se,
Yeah.
and very difficult to break into. So I went to school for journalism and graduated, tried to get a job as a journalist. It was a recession going on, and so I could not break into that. And I had to go to work, and I started dabbling in acting. And then so the acting came first initially. And I got some under five roles on some soap operas and all of that. But at the time, I was having some issues because of my childhood. I had a very, very harrowing, dysfunctional childhood. And so in my 20s, I was acting out a lot of the trauma. And I had to step away from acting to get my life together because I was just out of control. And I got into some therapy and worked on myself. And once I got well, I started writing. So acting was there, and then I started writing books. And in 2016, after being married for so long, I approached my husband and said, I would like to go back to acting. So long answer to your question, it was journalism, and then it was acting, and then I left acting and I started writing, and now I'm acting and writing.
So I quite like that, because often it's the other way around. People are desperate and desperate and desperate to act, and you were like, acting's not a career, but I can write. So I'll write, and then like, oh, do you know what? I need to do some acting to make this work. And it kind of worked for you. It's the opposite of like wanting it so much you push it away. It's just like, I can take it or leave it.
I had to step away from it because I just mentally, emotionally was not ready, because I had some issues, a lot of things fall out from my childhood. I had to work through that too. And so I had to step away from the acting. And once I got well, then I started writing and realized that that love for acting was still there. And so I was in a position where I could come back and do both full time, write and act.
Do you mind me asking? I not really necessarily the details of what you need to discover, but what did you discover where you looked at yourself and said, do you know what, I'm all right, I can do this?
Well, I realized, because of the trauma that I experienced, I was molested, and all of those things, beaten to a pulp by my stepdad. And I found my mother had passed, and I found her in our living room, passed away from asthma. So a lot of things happened. I internalized that trauma, those bad things. I was scalded by a neighbor when I was 3. So when I looked at all those horrible things that happened to myself, I internalized them and felt that I must be evil. I must be a bad person for these things. So in the discovery, in the healing process, I realized that those were things that just happened to me. Though that's not who I am.
Yeah.
I stopped identifying myself as that. But those are things that happened to me. And I had to go through a whole forgiveness process. And when I went through that forgiveness process and forgave myself and the perpetrators, then I began to realize I'm lovable. God doesn't hate me.
Yeah.
I'm a creation, and I'm a lovable person, and I love me, and that's what I discovered. I discovered how to love myself and to stop doing self-destructive things because I felt like I was bad, so I got to punish myself. I was bulimic, I was anorexic. I moved away from those things, and I began to cherish and love and do wonderful, beautiful things for Alretha. And in turn, doing that, I was able to love others too.
I always find it fascinating because, and if this seems clumsy, I'll apologise up front. But do you know when you see those like viral videos where it's some dog that's been beaten, left on the side of the street, and everyone literally is like, "Oh my God, that dog!" They'll do crowdfunders, but somebody will take care of it. And before you know it, 2 years later, there's this amazing dog that
Yeah.
just loves unconditionally, right? But when we do that to ourselves as humans, and we treat ourselves like we're that dog, we never treat ourselves with any kindness in the same way. We never look
Yeah.
past that and just say, hey, in the right environment, I can be nurtured into someone amazing. It just, we just don't do it. And when you were saying about finding your mother at 14 and some of the things you went on, was there ever a point later in life where you look back and thought, that girl had some courage? That girl really went through it
I-
and had some
um,
courage.
yeah. You know what? Yes, I definitely, I look back now and I'm amazed at where my life is today and where it was. And my mom, before she passed away, she used to always say, "You're so strong," because I would still make A's, straight A's in school, and I did well. But I used that as an escape, and that's why
Yeah.
I poured myself into my studies. But when I look back all that I've been through, yes, you're looking at a very determined, strong-willed person. And I can't take all the credit for it because my mom met a pastor along the way. And I got into church and I accepted Christ when I was 11 and got baptized when I was 13. And I had a very spiritual, strong group of people around me that rallied around me in prayer and believing in God and having faith and being able to go through that forgiveness process. I count a lot of that strength from God. There's a scripture that says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And the spiritual part that I've embraced has given me the strength too to overcome. And I don't look at myself as a victim, David. I look at myself as victorious. And I have survived a lot. And it's helped me, in my creative journey in terms of writing and terms of acting. I'm very in touch with my emotions and my feelings, and I have a lot of empathy for others. So it's really helped me along the way. I wouldn't be sitting right here today if I hadn't gone through all that I had gone through. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to have a message of hope and courage for others.
And it is an important message because I think one of the things when things happen to us in life that really are difficult things, let's not underestimate the pain and the horror of those things. But it's when you take a step back and separate yourself from the person that was there, you get to see somebody that's like, actually, that person did an incredible job in those circumstances and is really, really strong. But when you're talking about yourself, you don't look in the mirror and see that person. And I think that's one of the really difficult things for people when they, like you say, because it's once you recognize that, you find yourself in a place where you can heal and a place where you can then forgive. And that forgiveness then brings on more healing. But it's, you kind of look at yourself as, like you said, the victim instead of actually the circumstances happened. I just happened to be the person there.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I just wanted to sort of like discuss that because you mentioned, I just wanted to clarify like that there is that point of view that actually that's an incredibly courageous person. And, it's something to, when you look back on, to be proud of because it takes a lot of strength to do that. One of the things, so where did you then, from acting, what followed from the acting? Because you said you stepped back and you talked to your husband about getting back into acting. What followed?
Yeah, well, when I left acting, and I wasn't married at the time, and I left acting, and I got therapy and all, I had to work. So I went into corporate America and I worked. But while I was in corporate America, I started writing plays for my church. And the plays were doing so well that I took them into the community and would start doing plays, professional plays. So I was writing plays, and I met my husband in 98. And in 99, I wrote my first book. And I really didn't know what I was doing because I went to school for journalism.
Yeah.
Writing news copy was not exactly like writing fiction, So I had to learn by trial and error. And I wrote my first book in 99, and then I put it on the shelf. And in 2008, I decided to self-publish it. That was when Barack Obama was running. I said, well, if a Black man can run for president of the United States, I should have the courage to go in and step out with my first book. And I did. And it was received well by the readers. It had a lot of problems because, like I said, I didn't really know what I was doing. So I started studying the craft of novel writing. And now I'm at 15 books. So
Wow.
in 2016, after, writing so many books and working in corporate America, that's when I approached my husband. I said, if I can make it make sense financially, would you be okay about me going back to acting full time? And I'm happen to be married to a great guy. And he said, sure. And so in 2016, I stepped out. I got an agent. I pulled up all my old footage from the 80s. And my first few months out, I got a regional commercial, and then things started happening and they were taking off. And I'm writing books and I'm doing the acting. And then, as you know, in 2020, the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
And so everything came to a screeching halt. And I was like, oh no, right when I was getting going. And I thought I was going to have to go back to corporate America and back to work. And then in October 2020, my agent sent me something to submit for. It was a Tyler Perry show called Assisted Living. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to get this, because it was like, it could be recurring role, it said, and it was just a great part. And I'm like, there's no way. So, but I did the audition, I put 100% in. And then a week or so later, my agent called me. She said, they're making us an offer. And I was like, an offer for what? Because I had divorced myself from it. There was no way I was going to get that. And she said, well, they want you for the role of Anastasia Devereaux, and they're flying you out this week. And I'm thinking all this has happened during the pandemic. I was screaming, David. I was like, oh my God, it's God, it's God. But I believe that's how God likes to show up like that. He likes to do things that are miraculous, because to land a part in a major TV show during a pandemic is a miracle to me. And now I'm in my 5th year of the show. And 2 years after I started, they made me a series regular. So it's miraculous. I'm just so grateful. But yeah, so I'm acting, and then my book is, The Daughter Between Them, was voted one of the top indie thriller books by Kirkus Reviews last year. So I have this great show, and I have my book. It's my 15th book, and it's really doing well. So I'm really excited about it, and excited about life.
You have a lot to be excited about. It's flying. But there does seem to be this constant theme of, do you know what? I'm just going to give that up because it's not worth the effort. And then it comes round and bites you in the backside and says, no, you're sticking with this. We're pulling you in.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
I'm fascinated by 15 books, because it's in terms of book writing, that's a huge volume of books, and in actually a relatively short amount of time.
I was averaging.
Go on.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, David.
No, I was just going to say, what is the process that gets you to sit down and write?
Well, I average about a book a year. And, I'm a storyteller. I like telling stories. And as I said, my first book, Daughter Denied, was loosely based on my childhood. And my second book, Dancing Her Dreams Away, is somewhat a little bit, as writers, you write what you know, and it's about a young woman who had a terrible childhood, and she wants to be somebody. So she wants to become an actress to be somebody. And she runs into this horrible man, and he fools her. And, I noticed that I started getting into suspense early on. And then I have this 4-book series called the Cass and Nick series. And it's basically a romantic series. The first book, Married in the Nick of Nine, was a woman who wants to be married before she turns 30, and she turns 30 in 9 months. So I got into that, but I just have all these stories bubbling up in me. And that's what gets me going. And when I get a story, it comes in me, and then the characters start, and I sit down and I start mapping it out. I do an outline, and then I come up with the characters. I come up with the plot points, with the plot twist. I kind of map it all out. And once I have that blueprint, then I'm able to sit down at the computer and I start writing. And I've never suffered from writer's block. Once that story's in there, it's almost like something takes over, and I almost feel like I'm channeling someone else's life from a different dimension or something, because it just flows out.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Yours, can I just get a better description of the process? Because I've never had anyone say to me how they sort of plan it and map it out. That everyone, not everyone, but most people seem to be a seat of their pants type writer. They have an idea and they just sit down.
Yeah, well, I think the first thing is a story idea. You got to have the idea. So for my book right here, which I have, The Daughter Between Them, this is my latest book. So I had this idea of, I wanted to write a story about two mothers. So this idea about two mothers came up. And I have this then and now setup. So you have the current time, and that's the now. And Leslie Graham is a news reporter, and she's in the present day of the book, which is 2019. The then is the past, and that's Barbara Morris, and she's 10 years prior. So you have these two mothers, and they both have daughters. And I wanted it where there's a connection between the two women, and that connection is revealed as the book goes on. So you start with the idea. So that's the idea. So I have that. Yeah. So then you got to look at, all right, so you got these two women, who are they? So then I got to do biographical sketches of both women. So where they were born, their background, their family, they have to be real. That's the same approach I take to a character I'm acting. Yeah. I use what the writer in the script is giving me, then I will add more to that. What are their likes? What are their dislikes? What kind of personality are? And I like to write characters who are flawed, because as human beings, we're flawed. A perfect character is boring. And then you don't want your character, there's no all good person or no all bad person. They have to have layers and colors. And so after I have the story idea, then I create the character. So I had that. Now I got to look at, okay, so how is this book going to be structured? So I break it down into three parts: Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. Okay. I got to know how it's going to open. I got to know the middle, and I got to know how it's going to end. You have to know the ending, because if you don't know the ending, then you're not going to get there. The pot at the goat at the end of the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. You got to know how to get there. So once I have the story idea, I have my characters, I have the structure of the book, I break it down into chapters. Once then you're coming to the table with all this meat. Now I can sit down and start writing. And then it just goes on from there, because you have the foundation is set. It's like building a house. Yeah. You got to do the foundation. Once you have the foundation, then you can build on it. And that's my process.
And you said that when you're kind of in that place and you're then sitting down, it's like you're channeling, as though someone else is telling you their story.
Well, it's like, because what happens once I have it, so I got this opening chapter, and I know what's happening with Leslie. So she's at work. All right. So you open a book, and you have to have what they call the inciting event. What is the event that's going to happen that's going to take this book off, get it going? And that is, she gets a call from the police station that her daughters have been in a terrible accident. So I get going there. And by writing, the story pretty much goes with how I've outlined, but then I will find as I'm writing, certain things start happening and that I didn't think of in the outline, and it's good. And I'm like, wow, I'm not sure where that came from, but I like that. And so I'll keep going with it. And then it'll take, so it's this meditative, almost supernatural process that happens once you open yourself up to it. and then it gets going. You get going with it, and it just flows. But you don't go too far off the rails because you got the outline to keep you within, not going too off, the beaten path with it, if you will.
I like that. Did you think and like, please do correct me if I get this completely wrong, but do you know where you have that acting experience where you've got to portray a character, so you kind of got to have some understanding of that character, and kind of like, for want of a better term, like you've got to walk in those shoes to really be convincing as that person? Do you think there's a possibility, because of you know that for in real life because you're an actress and you've done that, do you think that sometimes when you're writing that maybe you are, like, in a strange way, the characters are switching as they tell their story through you?
They are. That's a good observation, David, because I do become a character when I write, and I write in first person. So that really enables me to embody the character, and I develop them. So as I'm writing Barbara and I'm speaking her, it is her. I am becoming her. As an actress, I have become her in writing her. And I think that's what connects the readers to my writing. They feel that. They feel I'm experiencing her. The show that I'm on, Title Period Assisted Living, we're wrapping up season 5 in terms of being on air. So there was an episode that aired last night, and it's the last episode of season 5 airs tonight. And as a matter of fact, you can see our show in the UK.
Oh, right.
Because I've gone online and I've seen that it's there in the UK. But I was watching myself on TV last night, and I was watching myself play this character. Yeah. I know that's bizarre. I'm watching myself play this character. Some actors don't like to watch themselves, and I've heard some actors say they don't like to watch. I don't have a problem watching because it's not me. When I'm watching this person, it's a character. It's Anastasia Devereaux. So I was watching Anastasia Devereaux, and she was vacillating about going to Hollywood and leaving the assisted living. And she's close to the people there. And I was watching, and she was talking about her decision. And I was looking at it, and it was so believable to me because I remembered when I be her, I become her.
Yeah.
I become her. And she talked about her situation with her family life, and she wanted to always be in a situation where there was love. And I remember doing that work. And I remember imagining as I was working on that scene, imagining Anastasia as a child, imagining the things that happened. And if you look at our lives, our real life, David, if you think about what you did yesterday or 3 days ago, or what you did for your last birthday, what is it? It's just a memory.
Yeah.
You have images in your head of what it is. So to create my characters and their lives, I use my imagination, and I think about what has happened. So as I'm sitting there at the computer, I'm imagining I have become Barbara, and these daughters that are in this car accident are my real daughters. And I've done the work, and I know what they look like, so they're in my mind, and I'm in the character. There's times where I'm writing and I may be in a scene and I end up crying in the scene at the computer while I'm typing because I'm so invested in who this person, I have become this person.
Do you, and it might be a cliche question to be fair, do you afterwards find you have to sort of step back and say, I'm not her today? You know, like that's finished. I need to clock out and be back to me. I need to go home, see the husband, definitely. And remember that this is who I am.
That's so true. Yes, I do. And when I play the role, on the show, even on the set, I have to, after I'm done, I got to move out of it, and move in it. And it's interesting you said that because I watch, I love good drama, and I'll watch certain things on TV. And there's a show, and you guys may have heard of it or not over there, called The Yellow Jackets. And these women, these actors have to go to such dark places. Yeah. And I think about that, and I say to myself, oh my gosh, how is this character affecting their lives? It's because the characters are so dark, and the things that they have to do are so dark. It makes me shiver to think to play a part like that and to have to go into that And to shake that, can you shake that when you're doing really good acting? So yes, you do have to. And I remember there was when we were filming one of our seasons, and I had to be sad. It was a sad situation. And I remember being on set and I was preparing and I was getting in that mode and I was getting in that mindset. And I remember one of the production assistants approached me and she said, "Are you okay? You just don't seem to be your normal self. Is someone bothering you?" And I said, "Oh, no, no, no." I said, "I'm in character. I'm preparing for the scene." She said, "Oh, okay. Oh my goodness. I thought something was wrong." But she sensed this whole mood.
Yeah.
And it was me preparing and getting into the character.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? I, as you were saying that, I remember, I think it was Oliver Reed I seen in an interview, and he was talking about when he was learning to be an actor, or somebody was giving him some training. I might be paraphrasing this really badly, so if anybody knows the real story, I apologise in advance. And it was something to do with imagine somebody breaking into your house, and you have to confront this person, and what would you do, sort of thing. And they had to play on this. Well, when the person came in, Oliver Reed grabbed him and threw him out. And they were like, "What the hell are you doing? You're supposed to be..." He said, no, if you broke into my house, I'd give you a hiding. Because that's all he put himself into. What would I do if you broke into my house? And he's like, "I'm not having a conversation with you if you break into my house." But this poor actor was on the receiving end of it.
That part. That's an interesting point you make, because there are people with their own technique and their different schools that thought about acting. There's the Stanislavski, the Meisner, Stella Adler. There are different schools of thought. And some people use their real life situation to what they would do, but for me, I like to keep who I am separate from the character's life. I like to have the character have their pure life, their own pure life. Now, where it comes in, I can say I can relate to the character. I've experienced death. I lost my mom when I was 14. I know what it is to lose a loved one, someone that dear to you. But I don't use my mom's death in my acting. That's my personal, private life. I don't use those emotions. I create a real life situation. I remember I had an audition to play this woman whose son was murdered. And she had pictures of him on her phone. And those were the only pictures she had. And someone stole her phone. And so the scene was, she had to do, it was a monologue, and she was talking to the public and saying, "If you could just bring my phone back." So I had to create that I had a son. I had to create the loss of him. So I didn't use my life. I actually created a son. I went online. I found a picture of this young man. I got a frame. I put him in the picture. I closed my eyes. I imagined getting pregnant with him for the first time. I closed my eyes. I saw him in kindergarten. I saw him in high school. My imagination, I created this whole life with this strange man that I called my son. By the time I was finished, I really believed he was my son. And I really believe he had been killed. And so when I got up to do the monologue, I broke down and I cried because it was so real to me. I had done that work. And so that's my technique. I like to create a pure world of the character. I don't like to mix my life with the character's life.
How do you, because I'm listening to what you're saying about, and there's a lot of detail. You really you've researched a person, you've found a picture, you've gone through, I am your mum. You are my son.
In my imagination.
But you say it's in your imagination, but I'm a qualified hypnotherapist, so I know what the imagination can do, right? So I'm like, oh my God, because there would be a part of you somewhere deep inside that really is this person, and it's happening to you. And
yes, it is.
When you go through that, which is probably the worst thing as a mother you could experience, losing your son is one thing, then losing the only memory picture,
only pictures you have.
I mean that's like,
devastating.
Yeah, it's literally there aren't words that you can use to express how painful that would be for somebody, and also how helpless they would feel in that moment, because they thought they'd lost everything and realised they've just lost even more. And so how do you, once you've gone through that, say, right, we're done. Okay, who's for ice cream and apple pie? Are we good? Yeah?
Well, it's interesting you said that because I'm in the room with the writer when I'm auditioning. The writer is there and the casting director is there. So when I finished, he looked at me and he said, "Oh my gosh, that was powerful."
Yeah.
That's what he said. And then he said he wanted me to do it again. He gave us, but he was hesitant to have me do it again. He apologized for having me do it again because he knew that I went through a lot of emotion. That was very painful to do that. And as a writer director, and I said, no, that's okay. I'll do it again. So yeah, people appreciate that. And I appreciate when I see good acting. I remember when I saw Jessica Lange and Halle Berry in Losing Isaiah. And there's a scene where they're both walking down the street and they're both professing love for this boy. And they had me, I was tore up. I was crying. I was boo-booing because I could feel both of those actresses were experiencing that loss. And it was the loss of that boy in that movie. It was pure acting and I felt it. So when the audience knows if it's real, because there's some actors that can cry, they have a technique and they can cry on cue, but there's nothing behind it. It's a technical thing, they're able to cry, but there's nothing there and you don't feel it. When a person is really tapped in and really being true to the art and really there, you as the audience are going to feel it, and that director, he felt it,
That's you said something there about crying, and one of the most powerful cries, I can't, various actors can do this, but it's the ones that don't blub. It's the ones that you see their eyes fill with water and then just the single tear comes down.
Yes.
And you're like,
yes,
that's sadness. That's
yes.
raw emotion.
It really is. It really is.
Because that's where you...
and even the actors I've seen actors that they didn't cry, but the pain is there to the point where I cry for them. There's never a tear come out, and that's very powerful. That it's there, it's so there, all that bottled up, you cry for them.
There's a scene where nobody cries, and it's one of the most powerful scenes you'll ever see, I promise, right? And it's Kevin Costner when he... Oh, crikey, I've forgotten the guy's name who plays the Witcher. I should know his name, he's English. But he plays Superman, right? And they're driving along, and him and Kevin Costner, who plays his dad, are having an argument, and he says, well, you're not my dad. All right, points out you're not, because everyone knows Superman crashed and he was raised by farm folk. And then there's a tornado coming, and they have to abandon the car with everyone else on the motorway or the freeway, run under a bridge. And as they're running to the bridge, Kevin Costner comes back to help somebody and then get the dog. And when he gets the dog, he frees the dog from the car, and then realizes he's not going to make it to the bridge for the protection of everyone else. And of course, Superman, whose last memory of his dad is telling him, you're not my dad, looks at him and is about to go to get him because he's Superman, and Kevin Costner just puts his hand up like that and just shakes his head and accepts his fate. And the look in Superman's face, no tears, but he's heartbroken. Because his dad just literally, it's okay, son, now it's my turn to sacrifice. And it's just because it's a Superman thing. It's not, it's not supposed to be that powerful. It's not some deep-rooted historical drama or anything like that. But it's
still powerful in that moment. Yeah.
I swear, you look that scene up and you'll be like, because there's no tears, there's no words. It's just two people communicating with looks. And you just, when people can do that and make, grown men like, oh, jeez.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, luckily the dog survived, so it wasn't a bad day. And because that's all that really matters, But it's acting is profound like that. It's when it's done well.
Yeah, it is. It really is. The beautiful thing I love about acting, you have to be in the moment. In real life, we're not often in the moment. we can be having a conversation and thinking about what we're going to have for lunch for next week, that tomorrow, but when you're on that set, when you're on that stage, you have to be present in that moment. You can't be thinking about the next moment or the one that just happened. You have to be there. You have to be actively listening, receive, and react. And you're in the moment. And it's a beautiful process. And I often tell people I like to watch the show or watch whatever because I didn't see it. Because I'm not on the outside of myself in that moment looking at myself.
Yeah.
I'm totally invested in that moment and going, and I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just in the moment. And then when you come out of it and the director says cut, then you're like, oh, okay. And you've done things that you didn't realize you did and it's a beautiful, powerful thing to be in the moment.
Yeah.
If we can live our lives in the moment, I think life would be so much, but there are too many distractions. It's very difficult. People practice meditation.
Yeah.
I practice meditation to try to help me be more in the present. But when you're acting, you have to be in the moment. You have to be in the present. And it's awesome.
I am absolutely fascinated by this idea that you can get yourself into this place. So I could imagine being on set, having to be in a bad mood, and I could remember something that put me in a bad mood, and everybody would know I was in a bad mood. And then when the director says cut, I don't know how I'm going to stop being in that bad mood, and everyone's still going to know I'm in a bad mood. So the fact that you guys can switch it on and switch it off, I'm just like,
yeah,
and with such conviction. Do you know what I mean? It's like you're there. Like you say, you are that person in that moment. And then when cut happens, it's just like, it's almost like just like shake it off. It's time to do something else.
You have to take that person off, take it off and move into your real life.
I'm just being mindful of time because I know you have other people to talk to. So I just wanted to finish on a couple of questions if that's okay. And I want to go back to something we discussed earlier, which it's about faith. I'm always fascinated by people that really have faith in their heart, and just kind of like, how do you manage to carry that in the day?
Oh my goodness,
it's a bit of a deep one for a finisher, I know, but
no, it's okay. I believe in God. I believe in Jesus. I believe in that source, that bigger power. I don't know where I would be if I didn't have that, because I have to have something to hold on to, and I don't see it as a crutch. I see it as the truth. And I've witnessed how that power has got me through all that I have gone through. Even prior to us having this call, I said, Father, show me what to say.
Yeah.
Father, show me how to speak. Show me how to, and tapping into that power and that faith. And I walk through, I carry that faith with me through life, because we live in a scary world today. There's a lot of violence, there's a lot going on. And to have that faith, to know I'm going to be led, and I say, please lead me, please guide me. I'll give you an quick example. I had this past week, I had ordered something on Amazon and it never came and I couldn't find it. So when I was going out, I said, okay, I'm just going to go and get it from the store. So prior to that, I had gone out and I had used my debit card. And at the bank, I took some money out the ATM. So I left and I thought I had put my debit card back in my wallet, but apparently I hadn't. So I went, I bought some purchases. And when I was going over to the other store to get it, I didn't have my debit card. And I was frantic. I was looking at, and the first thing I did was call on my faith. God, Father, please help me remember where I left it. Just, Father, help me. And the next thing I remembered, okay, so after the bank, go to the first place you went to after the bank. I did. I drove there. I got out the car. I wasn't seeing, and I just said that prayer again. And something literally turned me around, and I looked down, and there was my debit card. Now, the odds of finding something like that after you've gone, and it was there, and I just said, thank you, God, thank you. I've had so many instances of that, believing, praying. I remember losing my wallet in the house. I thought I left it. My husband said, go pray, go pray. I got out, and then this vision of my recycle bin came up. And I said, my wallet was in the recycle bin. So I believe God is real. I believe faith is real. Am I perfect? No, I make mistakes. I sin if you want, will. But that faith sustains me. And I believe that same faith that sustains me while I'm here is going to sustain me when I leave here and I'm born into the next existence. Because I don't believe we die. I believe we just keep going.
Yeah,
you know,
I do.
The body dies. The body dies.
The reason I ask is, funny, I was talking to this morning. I was talking to a friend of mine, Samantha, and we kind of got into this conversation about faith. And I was saying that luckily when I do the podcast, I do get to talk to a lot of people about faith. And when I was a child growing up, I described myself as a Southern Irish Catholic. I was raised as a Southern Irish Catholic, right? Because my mum's from Ireland, I was Catholic. But there were two types of people in church. People that turned up to church and said they believed in God, and people that carried God in their hearts. And you could tell the difference. You see, you know what I'm referring to. There's people that you see them when they talk about God and their faith and Jesus Christ, our Lord. It's with them. It's in their heart. And then there's other people that, whilst turning up at church and saying the prayers, you see them outside of the church and they're different people. And you just, so when I like to kind of, I don't know, give praise. I don't know the description, but when I see it, I like to ask about it. So thank you for sharing that with me. And
thank you.
My last question, which is completely random, right? Most of them have been, as I don't have any sort of script. I want you to imagine you have a time machine, right? And the time machine is a car of your choice, any car you want. Okay. What car is your time machine? Where are you going? And what music is on the radio?
Oh my gosh. The car would be a Lexus. Now, what are you going to make me cry at the end of this? The car would be a Lexus.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. I would be going to see my mother in whatever existence that she's in. And the song would be, I don't know why Diana Ross keeps coming in my mind. That
why
song
not?
where she says, I'm coming out. I want the world to know. I'm coming out.
Because that's a good song. Why not? That's beautiful.
And I would be going to see my mom, as you all say, in my Lexus.
Yeah.
Going to see my mom. We're going to go for a drive, and I'm going to put the top down, and we'll let the wind blow through our hair.
And you're going to listen to some Diana Ross. And that is a beautiful place to finish. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, David.
And there you have it. Please do check out the link in the description to the website, to all of the books. Check her out in the days of our lives. But thank you to Alretha. It was a great conversation. I loved the energy, and it's wonderful when people share the way they do. And as always, thank you for listening. Thank you for the support. And wherever you're from, whatever you believe, please do take care and be blessed. Thank you very much.